Are you looking to increase your land's value while also hunting big bucks? Well, you're in the right place. Land Hunter delivers strategies to improve your land for better hunting and higher return on investment. So stick around. We got some valuable tips on the way, and let's get started.
Welcome to the Land Hunter Podcast, where we discuss all things land. Introducing your host, Paul Morrison.
I created this podcast to help out and bring information to current landowners, potential land buyers, hunting enthusiasts, really anyone looking to potentially invest in and own their own piece of property. The focus of this podcast is mainly to optimize your land for wildlife and recreation while also maximizing its long-term value. This podcast, you're going to hear themes come up over and over again. It's really based on four pillars. The first one being land management, and we'll go into some examples of that here in just a little bit. Second one being land improvement, real estate trends, and hunting. That's what we all love to do. My goal for listeners is really to create conversation, generate ideas and proven tactics that will help them not only enjoy their land and improve their land, but also increase its value and make it a solid investment that you can enjoy with your family and friends, and some conservation in there as well. Some of the land management principles we'll discuss, and just a high level right now on this podcast, but a few that are always going to come up are things like timber stand improvement, prescribed burning, invasive species control. And now what I would say is when you are talking about land management, the first thing I would do is sit down, research, talk to people, listen to informational podcasts like this or others, and put together a very clear, concise, short-term plan, but also a long-term plan, even on a property that you want to sell it in the next 3 or 4 years. No problem there, but I would still make my decisions based on a long-term outcome. Some of the reasons I say that is we mentioned timber stand improvement. You could cut this timber several ways. So we could try to maximize profit. We could try to maximize habitat for our deer and turkey, or we could try to do a combination of both. How you go about that and achieving those goals can be very different. So I would always advise to bring in a licensed forester in your state, relay to them the exact, very concise goals that you're looking to reach, and then make sure they understand and that's the plan that they are implementing. Because once you cut that timber, it's cut. You know, a good hardwood forest, if you go in and cut most of it down, those trees you cut, they're not regenerating anytime in your lifetime, most likely not in your children's lifetime. You're talking about a multi-generational cut that's going to take, 80 to 100 years to get back to where it was when you cut it. But not to get too deep into that, just trying to emphasize the need to really have a long-term plan as well. Because if something happens, you decide to keep your land, you're stuck with that decision. And then also when you go to sell it, whoever buys it is also stuck with that decision. And they have to make their mind up if that's how they want to proceed forward or not. And it could change the outcome of a potential sale. One that's a little less permanent, I would say, is one I love, is very inexpensive, prescribed burning. I think it is an invaluable tool, very cheap, very easy, really using what God put out there for fuel on the ground. You need maybe a backpack blower or a tractor to make some burn lines and a drip torch to get it going. I would say it's a good thing to get trained or get some information on how to go about this. It's not very difficult principles to do a prescribed burn, but it's definitely something you want to keep under control, obviously. So when I do them, I always contact the local fire department just to let them know there will be a X acre, whatever it's going to be, 10 acre prescribed burn, or they don't get worried when they see the smoke. There's things to look at like humidity that day, wind direction, temperature. There's a lot of things to look at to maximize your burn. And then you can go into times of year. Do you want a growing season burn? Do you want a dormant season burn? These are going to produce different types of response. So one type of burn is going to produce more woody browse. Another type of burn is going to produce more green forage. What are you looking for? What are you looking to do? What are the holes in your property? So do you need more woody shrub tips in the winter? Or do you need more cover and greenery in the rest of the year? So just things to think about. And a good thing about prescribed burns is most counties, you can hire the county to come out and do a burn, and it's relatively inexpensive. If you're somebody who's never done a burn or never been on a burn, I would highly recommend having the county come out and just be out there with them, watch how they work. And they usually do a burn from $3 to $8 an acre. So it's not a huge expense. Like I said, it's a very inexpensive tool, but extremely valuable. So the next one we'll discuss, and the last one on this topic we'll discuss, is invasive species control. So non-native plants can be an absolute pain to get rid of on your property. This can be species in the timber. I'm sure we've all run into kudzu before, or things out in your field, whether it's some kind of weed or broadleaf plant. A lot of this can be taken care of with herbicides and chemical treatment. Some of it can be taken care of with burns, but the best place to start, I would always say, is your county extension office. To find a third-party contractor who handles these type of things, and they usually do a cost split or give you a dollar amount to have this done. You can learn to identify these species and continue to get rid of them year after year if they spring back up. I would always, on any project, contact the county extension office, see what programs they offer. They have a ton of programs that I don't feel like people take advantage of, and there's a lot of money there that they have the ability to give out and help you out to complete your projects, and it's just not always utilized. So I would definitely contact them. But then as we go on, we'll get into what I'm call land improvement. These are things that you do with your land, build on your land, things you put in place. So some of the talks we'll go through, obviously we're going to talk about food plots, scenarios and strategies of when or when not to implement food plots, the pros and cons of doing that. Water features is a huge thing. Any way to improve or create a water feature, putting in a pond, cleaning up an existing creek or stream. These are valuable not only to the owner, but also obviously wildlife thrives around water. Probably number one in all of this, the one that I deal with on a day-to-day basis, is putting in a good trail system. Now, this doesn't have to be where you can get your truck around the property, even though that would be fantastic, but at least being able to get a four-wheeler side-by-side, good walking trails. I like a perimeter system and then have trails that kind of get you through the property. But this is probably one of the simplest things to do. A lot of times I do it with just a chainsaw or a silky saw and my side-by-side and kind of make my own trails. Sometimes you have to get a little bit different equipment in there, but it's well worth it. Being able to navigate around the property not only is super beneficial to your ability to hunt and get to and from stands in a better way, but when you go to sell that property, being able to get people around, show them the entire property, show them more of what they're buying, not only getting them to and from places, quicker, but then that allows you more time to walk and look at some of the land and let them connect. I think one of the best things if you're a real estate agent who works on land is get people to a certain spot on your side-by-side, get out and walk. There's a connection with the land when you walk that is just not the same when you're just cruising at 2 or 3, 5 miles an hour on a side-by-side. So a trail system is invaluable, and it's something that can be really tough on a buyer when there's no trail system, especially if you're in hilly country, mountainous country. It's rough on them physically, and it's also just puts them in a different mind state, in my opinion. So one of the biggest things I would do, the first thing I would almost do, is to map out a road or trail system on my property. There's a million other things we can do. Obviously, planting trees. You could plant mass-producing trees. You could plant fruit-bearing trees. All this can be done rather inexpensively, but I can tell you I had a client who bought a property, not in a highly desirable area, to be honest, but we put that under contract a couple of weeks ago, and that particular property probably had more calls than any property I've ever seen. For here, it's a medium-sized property, 53 acres. He had a good trail system. He had food plots, but he planted persimmon trees, apple trees, pear trees, and he had done all this 7 or 8 years ago. And just the amount of fruit, the pictures of him picking buckets and buckets of apples, all the persimmons, the nut trees he planted, it just made a huge impact on buyers. And that orchard type setting he had where a lot of them clustered up and then he had others scattered around the property. Just a very minimal investment for him. Took a little bit of effort to get them established and going, but after that, he just let them ride, and they're producing enormous amounts of fruit. And that was just a key into getting his property sold. And we sold it at an extremely high price per acre because it was just a turnkey property ready to go. Not in the most desirable area of Tennessee, but just a fantastic property. And it's one that you could automatically show up and be ready to hunt, have fun, had a creek through it, good timber. I mean, it had a lot of things going for it, but little things he did, like things we're talking about now, really improved the price point at which he could sell that property. Putting in bedding areas and things like that, we'll get into that. Adding blinds or stands. Mainly on this, I'm talking about things like redneck blinds or box blinds. It appeals to people for whatever reason. I'm one of those guys, I don't love to hunt out of box blinds, but I have them on any property that I own. They come in handy with kids. They come in handy during gun season. But it's just something about having them there, having everything turnkey. Just seeing those on your property does something psychologically to a buyer that helps with its resale. And then one that we all do, running trail cameras. We all already do it. Keep those good photos. Just stack you a file on your computer and just say, when I sell photos, and get your upcoming deer, your target deer, turkey strutting, any kind of cool pictures off your farm. It really helps in the end to show what that property has produced, is producing, and deer that are there for the future for that next prospective owner to chase. If you go to a duck hunting property, they're going to have a log of kills for years and years and years. And I would encourage people that are deer hunting and turkey hunting mainly to do the same. Get you a cheap scale, learn how to age a jawbone, keep you a log of deer killed, when they were killed. I usually do by what weapon, get an estimated age on the jawbone, a weight, and then throw a picture in that file or something to what you harvested. And it'd go a long way when you're going to sell your property. It's good information to have as a land manager, but it's also great information to share with somebody who potentially may purchase your property. The last thing I'll kind of talk about, we're going to go into a lot of things hunting. We'll have stories. I've got some great guests that are extremely proficient hunters. The last thing is real estate trends. So what do I mean by that? Mainly what I'm talking about is if you're going to invest, and there's kind of two investors close to home. So say you live in Tennessee where I am. It's a hotbed to invest right now. Property has risen meteorically over the last 6 or 7 years. If you bought property 15 or 20 years ago, you're able to sell it for 10x minimum probably of what you bought it for in most places. The reason we have so much interest and becoming so expensive is we have Nashville in the center of our state, and it's one of the top growing cities in the United States. And Tennessee in general is one of the top growing states in the United States for multiple reasons. Most people I sell to right now, I'd say over 70% are not native Tennesseans or live in Tennessee. But back to the point, no matter where you are, there's a market there. So I look at Tennessee, and it's a great place to invest because there's a good chance in the near future your land's going to be rolled into something of residential or commercial. We just do not have enough housing for all the people that want to live here. So cities are expanding, not only Nashville, but south of us in Alabama. You got Huntsville, Murfreesboro, Knoxville, you name it. Everything's expanding, and that expansion takes land, takes homes to put on that land, commercial for other amenities around those people. So what you see is a huge increase in land prices, and then it kind of balloons out from there. Now, if you want a recreational track, you got to get at least an hour out of Nashville. You're still paying a lot an hour out of Nashville, but minimum hour, hour and a half, 2 hours to get into something that a typical recreational person would probably be able to afford. And so your local market is important. And then you have to look at the national market. So what I mean by that, if you're listening to this, you're probably a hunter, or it doesn't matter if you're a land investor and you don't care anything about hunting, the same reasoning applies. So you've got your destination states, right? Kentucky, big destination state. Everybody from the South, the first big buck state they get to, Kentucky. Illinois is still a huge draw from around the country. People want to own West Central Illinois. Southern Illinois has got great deer as well. The whole state honestly does. Iowa, destination states now like Kansas, where property is really what I would call, for the most part, extremely inexpensive, but is on the rise because everybody in the country wants to hunt where? Kansas. So figuring out where those next destination states are, trust me, hunters, landowners, investors are willing to pay a lot of money because it is tough to find land sometimes. I mean, one of the biggest problems in Tennessee is if you don't own land, we have a good amount of public land, but we have a lot of hunters too. And it is tough for people who are currently unable to afford land, don't have friends or family that own land, to lease a piece of land in Tennessee. It doesn't even stay out there. If somebody puts it on Facebook, that thing's gone immediately, and they kind of name their price. So back to my point is knowing the trends of not only the country of destination states for hunting would be a big one on this channel, but destination states or destination areas for places that are growing, like a Nashville. U-Haul put out a list of the top 5 destination states. Tennessee was 5. I know North Carolina and South Carolina were in there. There are 2 other states. I'd have to re-look it up. But knowing where people are moving to, I'm trying to get in and get some of that land now. It may not be a major hunting state. Tennessee's, I wouldn't call it a major hunting state for deer. I may for turkey. But you get in here and you buy some land, you can guarantee the return on that land in 5 or 6 years is going to be much better than somewhere else that's not so desirable right now. And those trends may change over time, obviously, as things change, but that's what I mean when I talk about real estate trends here, not only locally, statewide, but also nationwide. Most states have an area or areas have some type of draw, whether it be people wanting to live there, and that's driving it up, or it's a destination state for hunters and wildlife enthusiasts, and that's driving it up because there's only so much land to go around. So I'll give you a personal story that kind of ties all this together, and we'll finish up this introduction podcast. So I believe it was early 2001. My wife and I went, and I'd found a farm that I really liked. I really thought it was valued well. We went down, took a look at it, and on the way home, I said, you know what? That property's not going to be there after today. The agent listing it had actually already left. So I gave him a call, said, hey, we'd like to put in a full price offer. And from there, we got the farm. So I think we closed on it in maybe late February, maybe March, right in there. Anyway, I felt like there was a lot I could do with this farm. It had about 23 acres of open ground up top. Very good fertile soil, flat or relatively flat, had a little crown in it. Pretty good timber, old timber, and just laid out really well to hunt. So a lot of road frontage, beautiful cabin on it. So I went in there, and over the next several years, I planted warm season grasses. I put in food plots. I put in row crops of corn and beans, thickened up the timber with a chainsaw. So what I did is I went in, identified certain species that I knew were not really desirable. And my main goal was to create some bedding. That's what I thought the hole was on my farm, is it wasn't thick enough. So I went in, hinge cut some stuff, took down some bigger trees to open up the canopy, just really thickened it up, did some burns, like I mentioned earlier, just to enhance the undergrowth. I felt like I had plenty of food plots, but I didn't feel like I had enough browse. And so I just really wanted to thicken up. I hinge cut a lot of the edges, let that grow up in early successional. I left, I don't know, maybe 10 acres or so of a field. I left the whole thing. I let it grow the whole time I owned it in early successional. And it just proved to be a great place where I could go in and spot spray undesirable species, and I could let species that were palatable and tolerable to deer with just as much protein as what was in my food plots and just as desirable. And just created a mecca of bedding. Like I said, I had some switchgrass where I put around all my food plots, just turned it into a really nice hunting track, put up some permanent box blinds, had a redneck, had a couple other soft-sided blinds. Of course, I had a lot of lock-ons and things that I utilize, and I hunted a saddle a lot, so I had steps up all over the place. But for the purpose of if we were going to sell it in the future, I'd set it up really well, kept the trails clean, made it easy to get around, kept the pressure low, kept a log of all the deer. I didn't shoot a lot. I was letting the age on those deer continue to grow and grow over the course of time I had it. I think I took 1 or 2 bucks off that the whole time I owned it. I just had a rule I wouldn't shoot anything less than 5 years old, and I didn't. I harvested some does when I thought I needed to, based off of camera censuses and just what I'd seen in the field. Really just transformed that place. The real estate agent that sold it to me became a friend of mine, and he told me that he was a friend of the owner, and he said, the guy just never saw bucks on this place. And once I thickened it up and put in some of these strategies, that's all I saw. It was a buck haven, and those deer had just been just craving somewhere thick, some more browse, just place to be. And I turned that property into what was a kind of a wide open, big timber. You know, the guy had the fields cut like a golf course with grasses planted, and I reverted all that into early successional and food plots and crops and you name it, and thickened up the edges, thickened up places in the timber, and just I held deer year after year after year. I had one piebald. He ended up getting shot when he was 4 years old by the neighbor, but I had him from the first year all the way through his, I believe he was year 4 when he got shot, and just a beautiful, pretty big 8-point, turned into a pretty big 8-point piebald. And my neighbor, his son got him on a juvenile hunt, I believe. And just a beautiful buck. He got a full body mount. I'm sure I'll have some pictures to show of that one. But I was getting the same deer back, 103 acres. I'm not holding deer all the time, but I was holding a lot of deer at the right times. And they were bedding on me, feeding on me, then kind of getting their initial meal in my crops or in my food plots, and then kind of going out to wherever the cow pastures and wherever and do what they do. And then in the mornings they'd be back. So I was kind of releasing them at night, which is the ultimate goal, I think, for the deer that you can. You can't do it for everything. But anyway, turned this into a fantastic hunting property. And I guess it was 2024, my wife and I decided maybe it's time to see what the market value of this is. So I put it on the market, and we sold it without it even really hitting the market. We sold it for well into 7 figures, which was a over 3x return on investment over just a short few years. And that's what I mean by a property can become just a dynamic investment. You put on top of that all the fun and enjoyment I had of working on this property. First, I started out with just a four-wheeler and a four-wheeler boom sprayer and a hand-seated. I moved into a tractor and some implements, and I definitely used the co-op and then the county extension office for their seed drills and things like that. But what I put into that farm money-wise was not a ton, to be honest. And what I got out of it was just almost life-changing type investment. And you can take that and roll it into your next piece of ground and use a 1031 and not have to pay capital gains taxes and continue that investment. There's just not anything else that I know of on this earth that you can invest in and bring so much enjoyment out of. I had so many juveniles that killed their first turkey or their first buck. We have a governor's hunt where I got to guide them on your farm on opening day of turkey season, and he got to kill a really nice gobbler that we worked hard for on my farm, and he hadn't killed a turkey in a long time, and he was just so appreciative, and we just had such a great hunt, and it was just a fun time. You take all the monetary gain of that, and then you put that into perspective of all the personal growth, learning how to do stuff, trying strategies out, also just the enjoyment with my family, riding side by side around with my 2-year-old. He was there on a prescribed burn one time, got to enjoy that. All the memories and things you get to take with you from those properties. It's just something you don't get on like a 401k or, when I get my statements for my Roth or 401k or whatever, There's no memories with that. It's just every month I put X amount in and I get a statement every quarter or whatever, and it is what it is. But with land, you're building memories, you're improving the wildlife, you're being a conservationist, you're doing the best you can to put back into the land. And for all that, you're getting paid eventually. You're getting a potential life-changing return on investment. I'm not saying every investment's going to be that lucrative, but it is a lot more common than you would think. And with a little bit of work and knowledge, and that's what I hope to bring in this podcast, I feel like a lot more people can diversify their investment strategies where they can enjoy the outdoors, enjoy it with their family, make some memories, live life on it, and in the end, still come out fine monetarily and just have memories that are irreplaceable. That's kind of my personal story on the reasons I love land and I love investing in land. And then we'll get into other strategies of how to take a piece of land and track it up and maximize profit. What I love about this is I'm able to combine a lot of things: scouting land, walking land, nature, being in God's creation. I love hunting. I love sharing what knowledge I have with friends or family or children, and then watching them be able to hunt and learn things and listen to turkeys gobble. I mean, there's so many memories. It can be difficult when you sell your farm because you do become emotionally attached, and those memories and those experiences stick with you, but there's always a new farm to make more on. So that's a real life anecdote of what happened or what can happen. And that's really the point of this podcast. Bring all these ideas, these strategies to make a decision whether it's something you want to do, is investing in land, whether it's a good idea for you or fits you. There's so many ways to go about it, whether you put in sweat equity or hire somebody to do it. But my goal is to just bring those 4 pillars that we talked about and encompass that into ideas and strategies for maximizing your land potential. By that, I mean your enjoyment of that property and your family's enjoyment of that property, and also maximizing the monetary potential of that when you go to sell it. There's a lot of channels out there where you can get just into land management or just into hunting. You can look on real estate websites and things, but what I wanted to bring together for this is just kind of all of that, because it's all really interrelated and can really work very hard for you to improve your hunting, improve your recreation, your enjoyment of land, but also just improve your return on investment. I mean, I don't know. To me, that's the best of all worlds. And I don't know what else you can do that with. I'm going to try to bring an episode each week, and we're going to take deep dives into strategies in future episodes that deal in all 4 pillars: land management, land improvement, hunting, and real estate. I have a lineup of guests. So we're going to have experts that are biologists, foresters, loan officers, other hunters, other land specialists and real estate agents from around the country. And really, I just want to generate ideas and conversations and strategies to maximize your land potential. So if this is something that you feel like you're interested in or resonates with you, I'd love for you to obviously like and subscribe. I hope you'll enjoy future episodes. And I'm a little new to this podcasting, so I will get better and better each week. And I hope you'll hang with me for that. But I hope to be informational, informative, and hopefully entertaining, and just stimulate thought and conversation. But I'd love for you to share with your friends, your family, your hunting buddies, anybody you think may be interested in land, whether it be for hunting or for investing, or ideally for both. And feel free to contact me on social media or email. I'd just love to hear topics that you're interested in, which you'd like to talk about. We would definitely curtail some of our topics to what the audience wants to know about. I encourage you to subscribe or leave a review, a thumbs up, whatever it is. But you can find it on YouTube, Apple Podcast, or Spotify. So that's probably going to be it for this one. I'm going to sign off, but I encourage you to manage, improve, hunt while enjoying your investment while it grows. That's the goal. So until next time, we'll see you. Be safe, and I appreciate you. Thank you.